assuming that there is this chimerical creature called an ecosystem, which I'm supposed to be a part of, all I can say is just before your session, I had a discussion on CNN News 18 in the backdrop of Chief Justice of India Ramanaji's this statement on the need to indigenize Indian legal systems. Okay, that statement he has given.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that when the Chief Justice of India makes such a statement, obviously it is perhaps a sign of things to come.
Things to come.
Otherwise, such a sensitive statement wouldn't have been made. Okay, so because it is rife with it can lead to controversy also. Okay, so someone wearing a crown of thorns wouldn't make a statement that will lead to controversy unless it is meant to have an intended effect. Okay, so I'm hoping that it translates to something. I'd like to see what it translates to. In terms of very specific policy prescriptions, there are about 7 prescriptions that I've given in the second section of the book under the civilization section, based on R.K. Mukherjee's prescription of how a civilization state must function. Now, what does this translate to in the form of a constitutional framework? I will be in a much better position to give these prescriptions, if at all I have any, after I'm done with the second book. Okay, because the second book is where I undertake an analysis of the problem, if it exists, and then certain prescriptions. So that will take some time.
Right, right.
And to be fair, since this is not a propagandist literature, there is no predetermined outcome towards which this is moving. I've still kept a very open mind to the fact that the Constitution is perhaps not as terrible a document that, as people make it out to be. And the kind of perversions and distortions that we associate the Constitution with is perhaps the judicial interpretation that is being foisted on the Constitution, which may be at variance with the original intent of the framers of the Constitution. And there's a good reason for this. Of course, it's anecdotal, it's not scholarly, which is, so look at the people who populated the assembly. Madan Mohan Malviya, the founder of Banaras Hindu University, Sri Rajagopalachari. None of these people can be simply accused of being mental slaves.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. Then you have Kulapati K.M. Munshi, the founder of the Bharati Vidya Bhavan, a lawyer, a constitutional expert, coupled with a great historian. Okay. So these people had a sense of history as well as a sense of, let's say, constitution. All of this is there. Okay. H.V. Kamath, these are all people. Then Lokanath Mishra, the one who actively pushed for adoption of Sanskrit as the primary lingua franca of this country. With all these people being present there, we have painted the entire Constituent Assembly with Nehru's brush. Okay.
Ambedkar.
Nehru, Ambedkar. So many people were there in the Constituent Assembly. It's not as if it was a dialogue between two people. They decided.
They just sat and wrote it down and like. Okay.
So therefore, I want to do justice to these people because I'm sure they would have defended the civilizational interest during the course of the debates. Okay. And when we keep saying this, that it was not elected, it was not elected. No, there was a certain proportional representation. It may not have been ideal because you're basically looking at the current democratic structure to look at how the Constituent Assembly was elected without realizing that no country has given complete adult franchise upon independence to all its population except Bharat.
Except Bharat. True, true.
So considering that, you're foisting current day expectations of complete adult franchise to 1946, on to 1946. Okay. So therefore, you're saying all of us were not consulted. How many people do you want to be consulted by when out of 36 crores, a significant proportion of the population was living under below poverty line? They had no access to food. They were, dying under poverty. You expected them to contribute to the Constitution.
And okay. How? What would be the means?
What would be the means? And what is worse is that when people make these statements, they don't realize. So here's the stage that happened. And this is what I'll be busting as part of the book, the second book, that Dr. Ambedkar did not draft the Constitution, point one. It was drafted by Benegal Narsingh Rao, the constitutional advisor to the Constituent Assembly. Okay. He prepared the draft Constitution, shared it with the drafting committee. The drafting committee was put together by the Constituent Assembly, which had about 7 to 8 members. They elected Dr. Ambedkar as the chairman of the drafting committee to fine-tune the draft presented by Benegal Narsingh Rao. Okay. So who you call as the architect of the Constitution is the fine-tuner of the draft. Okay, that's one. Second, what they do is that after they fine-tune the draft, they send it out to multiple places and constituencies and multiple public leaders for their inputs. Then that particular Constitution, which is, so First draft is revised by the drafting committee.
Committee.
Then based on inputs, it is further revised. And it is that draft that is presented to the Constituent Assembly on 15th of November, 1948.
Wow.
Okay. Now this entire process happens where you have held multiple consultations and still people keep saying, "Humse nahi pucha, hamare pardada se nahi pucha, hamare tata se nahi pucha, inse nahi pucha." Arey, what are you saying? Did you know all of this happened? Okay. So imagine how much of WhatsApp university our head is filled with. Okay. So I want to bust each of these myths. One, to say it was a product of a solo act. No, it was not.
It was not.
One, to say that no, we were never consulted. No, that's not the case. So there are problems with both ends. Okay. These are facts. You can't digest them. That's your problem. But the facts can't change. So once I present that, then I'll get into the value-based discussion, where there are at least 4 subcommittees appointed to discuss multiple aspects of fundamental rights, minority rights, and whatnot. Okay. All those discussions I'll go through to tell people, oh, all of this is in the public domain. You want to talk about the Constitution, it's a specialist area, but you still want to talk about the specialist area, at least go through the rigmarole of a specialist, which is to read the literature. Okay. So I'm basically going to say, do not talk about a subject without having the necessary ammunition. Okay. Opinions to muft mein aayenge, lekin gyan muft mein nahi aata hai. So you need to work on it. So all of this will happen, and then I will think of the prescriptions. Okay. One of the things that the second book will do is to bust as many myths as possible about the Constitution from this side as well as the other side.